Hello everyone and welcome to this Age of Empires 4 showdown. It's going to be the Mongols led by FB Kazva facing off against the RUS who shall be led by the Mista. So let's go ahead and jump into this match and have some fun. Now here on the bottom side of the map we do have our blue player, which is going to be FB Kazva playing the Mongols. One of the cool things about the Mongols is all of their buildings can actually move. So here you can see the town center is being relocated to a slightly more optimal position, right? You get it right next to the trees, and then from there you don't have to build the Ger, which is the Mongol collection buildings, which is really cool. So it saves a little bit of resources, get a slightly more defensible position. Very, very cool stuff. Up on the top we have our red player, which is going to be the Mista. He is playing the RUS, so certainly going to be hunting some wildlife here on the map, and let's go ahead and explain that mechanic to you guys right now. So if we take a look at the red side of things, they do have the bounty mechanic. So the more wildlife they take out, so sheep, deer, wolves, boars, they basically get an increasing amount of bounty. Now, when they get 100 bounty, which is very quick to do, you can do it in the first, 5 minutes of the game pretty easily. This gives you a villager harvest rate for food, which lasts across lasts the entire game, obviously, but it affects your entire faction, and it also makes your hunting cabins, which is another unique mechanic, a little bit quicker to collect their bounty. So the way hunting cabins work is they serve as a food drop-off point, but what's really cool about them is if you build them next to a forest, they also give you constant gold. So most factions, when you want to go to tier 2, if we take a look here at a worker and go to the advanced to the feudal age, it costs 400 food and 200 gold. So if you're playing like the Holy Roman Empire, for example, or the English, in order to advance to the second age, you're going to have to go out a little bit further than your base. You're going to have to set up a mining camp here, get some gold, or else you're going to be stuck on age 1 essentially indefinitely. But what's really cool about the RUS is you don't even need to mine gold at tier 1. What you do is you get scouts, and the scouts go around and they start taking out the deer and the wildlife, which give you a bounty. So every deer you take out not only increases your bounty accumulation, but it also gives you a gold income, which is really cool. So you can like take out one of these deer, and I think they give like 15 or 17 gold, I'm not quite sure. Yeah, it's really, really powerful for sure, because the RUS can just kind of turtle up. It makes them a very effective defensive faction against the Mongols. The Mongols are a faction, and you can see here that we do have a very early build coming in from Kazva, which is going to be an early horseman build. Now, normally you get horsemen at the second age, but the Mongols are able to get early horsemen, which can really catch you off guard. If you're a newer player, for example, you don't really have like a tight formation like this, you're extending out here, maybe you set up an early hunting camp to get some of these deer, and right here you can see we are going to be seeing the gold income in a second. I guess it's not showing us because we are on the blue player perspective, but each of these is giving gold to the RUS player, which is going to allow him to advance. But like an early horseman raid can be devastating if you're not prepared for it, but the very tight base here of the RUS is certainly pretty well equipped to handle such a harass, and I certainly like the base layout quite a bit. Certainly going to be taking some notes here. Now, let's go ahead and switch back to the red perspective, and hopefully it'll tell us how much he gets from the deer here. And yeah, plus 10 gold right there, which is nice. So that's like, this camp is going to get him more or less the distance he needs to get there. And currently you can see the gold is actually, wow, 169 right there. Doing it pretty good. That's what she said. So the defensive landmark, or the landmark that is going to be chosen for the RUS, is going to be the Kremlin. The Kremlin is very good against aggressive factions. If you're expecting an English longbow rush, if you're facing off against Mongol early horsemen, this is good because, yes, your town hall can defend, but sometimes with enough aggression, horsemen can just kind of blitzkrieg in. They could sacrifice a couple horsemen and overwhelm and disrupt your economy. But in this case, the Kremlin is going to be able to kind of secure the lumber economy here for the RUS and also provide overwatch support on the town hall. So it has a pretty big range of influence. It should be able to kind of protect all of those. However, the Mongols here are going to be taking out the mining camp, and it looks like some early stone was being accumulated by the Mista. Which obviously means he wants to go for an early expansion. So expansions, if we take a look at the workers, I believe cost 400 wood and 300 stone at the second age. So yeah, he's going to be going for the early stone. Most likely just going to be going for a defensive build against the Mongols, which I like. I've seen many games where people will, they'll try and play the Mongols game against them, and it can be very, very tough. The horse archers will come in numbers, and you're going to have a pretty bad time. But in this case, it looks like our RUS player is going to be taking a very, very defensive posture. Going to be building the Kremlin, going for an early expansion, probably using the wooden fortresses, the unique RUS building, which is super cool. It's like an outpost for other factions, but it's just stronger. It can be given emplacements, and it also does give you benefits to your lumber harvesting. So if you place the outpost right here or the wooden fortress, it increases the amount of wood that's dropped off the lumber mill, which is very neat. So first barracks coming in, probably just going to get some basic spears, just have a little something something in case his opponent does dive in here. In the meantime, the Mongols are able to take out the mining camp, which, isn't the biggest blow to the RUS, but What's very cool about that is the Mongols do have a trait that if they do light a building on fire, they actually get resources, which is incredibly cool. So they get rewarded for their early raiding, and that can actually be really scary in late game too. If they like do raids, destroy your houses, they're going to be getting a big spike of income. So the RUS player here, the Mista, going to be reaching the second age. You can see the Kremlin going to be providing some nice Overwatch fire there, shooting downtown at the advancing horses who are looking to get in there, but really, this is a pretty damn tight build. And since the RUS don't have to go mine gold at the first age, they're pretty darn safe, right? They could just sit here, farm the sheep, farm the wood, the main resources they need, and eventually slowly expand out here. Going to build a wooden fortress, and then it should be pretty safe to take the stone outcropping after that. Now, it looks like the RUS have their own scouts. Scouts do pretty terrible damage. They only do 4 damage compared to the horsemen who do 7, of course. But yeah, scouts also seem to have a very slow attack rate compared to horsemen, so they just are not going to do well in that fight. Now down here for the Mongols, a great base positioning coming in from Kazva, I believe is his name. I'm going to be doing my best to remember that. Played against him quite a bit here in this early access, and man, he is the Terminator, as is his opponent. So pretty cool stuff. Looks like there is a pretty healthy gold production. If we look at the income per minute here, you can see it's pretty darn similar. It looks like the food income is just right down the pipe. The Mista, of course, with the RUS, really, really solid in the wood department. In the RUS, you need to be going hard in the paint on wood because the RUS cannot build stone walls, but they can build these special wooden palisades to prevent raiding. And also the wooden fortresses are really important for securing map control against a raiding faction like the Mongols. I think my prediction for the Mista and what I think he'll probably do is like a tier 4 rush. Just turtle, go to the 4th age and get the Streltsy in like huge numbers. So Streltsy are a unique unit to the RUS, and they're essentially like a super steroided up handgun unit. And they just pound heavy cavalry, pretty durable in melee as well. So probably going to be seeing Streltsy teamed up with some sort of cavalry or spearmen, and that is going to be a pretty nasty army composition. In my experiences, the RUS, they're a pretty good early game faction. You can get horse archers, you can get early knights, you can certainly put early pressure on people. I do think that the RUS and the Mongols are probably 2 of the strongest factions in the entire game. The Mongols are just really, really... I think one of the things like people are going to realize pretty quick, like newer players are really going to struggle against Mongols. I think more veteran players, like here you can see the Mista is pretty... He hasn't really taken any damage from this early harass. His opponent has invested a lot in the early cavalry, and he's basically just kind of sitting here and expanding quite happily. And the cavalry will come in, great reaction. He's going to be garrisoning those workers, and suddenly they start shooting out of the wooden fortress. And look how quick he is on getting those workers back in. I mean, just incredible micro. And even here as well, like now the gold is completely safe. Like it would take a pretty massive commitment from the Mongols to bring down these wooden fortresses, which again are quite a bit stronger than the palisades or the outposts for other factions. So down here, looking at the Mongol landmark, they're just now getting to the 2nd age, so quite a bit behind the RUS in that department. But the deer stones are really good. Essentially, cavalry and traders near an outpost get 15% speed for 20 seconds, which is pretty cool. So you can see it provides the EM speed aura upon completion, instantly grants the technology. And it seems to actually be affecting all of these characters here. So due to the EM network, all of the villagers are 15% faster, which does equate to a faster drop-off rate. Not so much like with the gold vein to the Gare here, but basically if it's like a further route they have to go to get the resources, or if they have to run from a raid, they're going to get away a little bit quicker. So it's very cool. Yeah, the Mongols got a lot of scary tricks up their sleeves. So houses being built, the defensive RUS certainly expanding outward. It looks like here they got the towers, and this is another excellent tactic. You'll notice here that the RUS scouts are basically gathering food. So against Mongols, he knows he can't contest the map. So what he does with that is he goes here, well, actually wrong building here, and he gets the upgrade, he already got it, which is called Expert Scouts. And what that allows you to do is the scouts can actually pick up the carcasses of the wild animals and bring them back to your base. It's so good with the RUS. And something else that's really funny about this, if you get it relatively early, you can actually go down to your opponent's territory and like steal their deer from him. So if he wanted to do like a RUS Tokyo drift here, he can go down here and just grab these deer carcasses and bring them back up to his own base, which is hilarious. It is like the most troll thing ever. And now like the RUS food supply is going to be solid for a long, long time. Like he's not going to have to worry. There's a ton of action going here, but the RUS are pretty spread in terms of resources, 6, 7, 5, and 6. And if we look here at the Mongols, very heavily invested into the wood as well as the gold, looking to probably try and catch up to his opponent in terms of technology. And I would imagine maybe we'll see some horse archers at this point, although he doesn't have an archery range quite yet, mainly just going for early horsemen. So I think he's just going to be using these horsemen to make his opponent think that he's going to continue to be aggressive here while he just tries to catch up himself. So you'll probably notice the tooltip, a new Khan rises. What happened is that the Mongol Khan was killed, And essentially, after a short period of time, the Khan does come out, and yeah, he's got some great upgrades. I mean, here he's the attack speed arrow. He can give a movement speed arrow, and then he can also do one to increase the armor of nearby units. The Khan is incredibly powerful. Huge force multiplier in the late game battles. If you have a bunch of Mongolian heavy cavalry, and the Khan's able to really like sauce them up using his buffs, it can really make a big difference in those fights. So the Rus looking like they want to come down. The Mista looking for some of them goodies. Probably going to be trying to raid some of the deer. Oh my god, I hope he does it. He's going for the deer raid. It looks like he might go down there, or maybe he's going to go down here and jack these ones since it's a little bit safer. I would imagine that would be the case. So the Mongols look like they want to raid here. They really want to light that house on fire and pillage its resources, but the house, or the wooden fortress, is occupied by the Rus villager here, so it looks like, oh no, they're actually spearmen being left in here. Okay, interesting. So we use the spearmen to garrison his towers so the workers can be efficient. That's a really, really cool one there. I like that. Yeah, so he leaves a single spearman in each tower, which, you know, could jump out and do some business if they need to. Now the Rus are coming in. They got 4 of these scouts here. We're going to be grabbing these deer, and we'll certainly be heading up north and due east to drop those off. No trade routes coming in from the Rus. We don't see a tier 2 marketplace, nor are the Mongols, although the Mongols do get a nice expansion here. Going to be getting a ton of wood, and we do have an expansion coming out for the Rus as well. So both factions have expanded. Now for the Mongols, something to explain here is they don't build stone walls. They can't build like walls at all. So instead of actually using stone for those type of things in expansions, their expansions cost only wood. It actually costs 900 wood and no stone. So it's a little bit different than other factions. And the main mechanic of the Mongols really to focus on is the uvu. So this is a building that you build on top of a stone outcropping here, and it basically gives you periodic stone. Now, what do you use stone with for the Mongols? Well, you use it to either double produce units that are within the influence of the Uvu, so you can see you can get 2 horsemen at the same speed other factions would get 1. You can build archery ranges to get double the amount of archers. You can build your farming buildings. So the Mongols do have pastures at tier 2, which produce sheep, but if you build it within the influence of the Uvu, you get faster sheep. If you have a blacksmith here, you get superior upgrades. It's really, really cool. Now, the Uvu will deplete eventually, and you'll have to find some other stone on the map, but it's not a problem because you can simply pack up all the buildings and relocate them next to your new Uvu. So here, the early horsemen have still not been upgraded. I do like that the Kasva here, the Mongol player, has not really gone even more all in a military. He's kind of been expanding and trying to catch up to his opponent's eco after his early harass. And I think we're going to be seeing horse archer harass, which is devastating. So the Mongols get the Mangudai, I think is how you would say that. But they're just really efficient horse archers. They can 360 shoot. The Rus can get horse archers too, but they don't get them till tier 3. So the Mongols can certainly get in some really, really nasty early pushing, and they are an incredibly effective unit. Now, as far as some unique upgrades to the Rus here at the stables, they are a cavalry faction. They have the Knight Saber, so their melee knights get extra damage. You can see here they have the Boyar's Fortitude, which increases the health of their cavalry, and they do get the early knights. So they can get the knights essentially in the 2nd age, which is very, very strong. Now, have we seen the 3rd age for anyone? No, it looks like, yeah, he's going very in on the archery ranges in these stables. I wonder if he's going to go for basic archers or if he's going to go for his own horse archers. The Rus do have horse archers, but they don't get them till the 3rd age, whereas the Mongols can get their horse archers in the 2nd age. So they can get pretty aggressive. Now, are we seeing any landmarks? It doesn't look like it. We're getting the pasture economy set up. So the pastures are going to be set up next to the town center, which is very, very smart. Basically, it's a quick drop off, and I think the Mongols actually have one of the best food economies in the game because like just having the like constant sheep instead of like having to worry about a million farms is like this is probably like enough pastures for most of the game, whereas other factions, once they run out of food on the map, basically just have to go balls deep and just get like a million farms, and it's much harder to protect than this. Now, he's choosing not to build the pastures near the Uvu. He doesn't really have much space for it. Rather, he's getting the military production near the Uvu so he can get the double military production instead. And now you can see the horse archers are here, and the new age has begun here for our Rus player. And let's see what his landmark is. So we got the archery ranges. Here are the Rus horse archers. Pretty cool indeed. We have an expansion here and another expansion. Man, the Mista is just going crazy on the expansions. Really defensive eco, which I think is very strong. Rus are very good at defending themselves early with the wooden fortresses. And then from there, you basically just like eco up, get their elite knights. I mean, the Rus have scary cavalry, and they also have really scary firepower in the late game. So I really, really do think this playstyle is quite cool. Now we have the first raid coming in. The Mongols going to be going in pretty hard here. Might be able to get a couple of the workers here. Some of the workers not quite able to get garrisoned before they get picked off. And the Mongol horse archers are going to start circling the Rus encampment. Granted, the damage wasn't terribly devastating. Probably lost like 4 or 5 villagers there, but so too of a couple of the horsemen, the early horsemen being taken out. But you know, I don't think that the Mongol player cares too much about losing the early horsemen because he is getting a ton of value with his Magudai here, picking off the villagers. On the other side, where's the landmark for the Rus? They did get to the 3rd age. We have the Kremlin, and aside from that, what is their 3rd landmark? It is the High Trade House, yes. This is such a good landmark. If we take a look at it, it basically generates gold like a hunting cabin. So it's going to be giving you constant gold and also spawns deer every 60 seconds. So it's a constant source of food, constant source of bounty because the deer will give you towards your final bounty. And on top of that, villagers can drop off food. Now, the reason why it's only generating 31 gold is because if hunting cabins are placed within proximity of one another, they don't generate their maximum amount of gold. It actually reduces it by quite a bit. So that is the reason why. So maybe this hunting cabin would be deleted later. Who knows? We'll see. And then this one would start to generate more because if you put it like near like a big source of wood, it would be giving you about 200 gold a minute. It's very, very powerful for sure. That was a nice raid by the Mongols, though. If we take a look at the player score at the moment, it's pretty darn even. The RUS player is up a little bit on the score, which is a combination of military, technology, economic, all sorts of stuff like that. And in terms of the military, you can see, units lost, units killed. It doesn't give you like the value of said units, but generally you can see that reflected in the score. So back to the income per minute. Nice usage of houses here because Mongol horse archers aren't really going to do a whole lot against the houses. But they could still like park right here and shoot over and do some work. It looks like the Mongol player has now reached the castle age. Oh, look at the archery ranges. I love it. So he moves all of his military infrastructure over to his new Uvu. That is so cool, man. The Mongols are such a unique faction. Like, they really probably have one of the most unique playstyles in the entire game. But, I mean, you got to watch out, man. If those RUS are able to get up and get to tier 4 and start pumping out streltsy, your horse archers, your cavalry are going to have a very bad time. Typically, in my experience, like, RUS have one of the strongest late games because though they build only wood walls and they can't like garrison or I guess defend in the same way, the wooden fortresses make up for that. And on top of that, the tier 4 landmark, which hopefully I'll get a chance to show you in this game, is called the High Armory. It basically makes nearby siege production much more efficient. It gives you crazy good upgrade where the RUS can instantly set up and take down their artillery, like just crazy, crazy good stuff. So you really, really got to respect the RUS late game. I think they have one of the strongest late games, like hands down. Not to say their early game's bad either. You can do like cavalry rushes, and I think that's the making of a high tier faction or civilization. I do think that the RUS are going to be high tier. So now they have their own horse archers, they have their own knights, and the Mongolians, have they started getting lancers? No, it looks like they're staying with the Mangudai here. And archery ranges still just pumping out horse archers, and now he's upgrading to veteran Mangudai here, or Mangudai. I'm so sorry, I'm probably mangling that. But nonetheless, in each age, you have the early spearmen, which is certain factions can get early variants of units, and then it goes to hardened, then veteran, and then elite. And every time you upgrade a unit in conjunction with the age you're in, it's basically going to give that unit a huge stat boost. A lot of gold production going here. Relics have not been picked up. The RUS player could certainly build a church and start grabbing those relics. I'm sure he will at some point. And here it looks like the RUS are looking to pick a fight, and I think they know that they're ahead in terms of technology, and here you can see the Mongols actually do get to the 3rd age as well. So what was their landmark? Usually it's the step readout. That's probably the best one. It's a Mongol landmark that essentially gives you 50% more gold on the nearby gold farming that you're working on, which is really, really strong. But we'll try and find that 3rd landmark here in a second. So the Mongols going even more in on the horse archers. They do hit pretty hard with 10 damage, but again, the RUS heavy cavalry have pretty good armor, so I don't think that the Mongol horse archers in a straight pit fight will win, but again, they can run, they can shoot 360, and now the Mongols are switching into their own lancers. Now, in the late game, the RUS are going to be getting more powerful cavalry. The Boyar's Fortitude, the Knight Sabers, they will win head-to-head against the Mongolian Lancers. But again, the Mongolians have the mobility, and in my experience, the Mangudai are a little bit better than the RUS horse archers. So there's, some variables going back and forth. But again, if you let those RUS get late game and get those guns, the big guns certainly never tire with them, and it is some very, very nasty stuff. A little bit of expansion going. Hunting cabin being set up here to go after the berry bushes. A nice location because it will generate gold from the nearby wood. And it looks like the hunting cabin is still set up here. A couple idle workers look to be going after the deer, but I don't think there's enough deer spawning based on how many workers are there. A little bit of a battle down on the south side of the map. The RUS do have a warrior priest riding with them, or the warrior monk. It looks like they don't. We have our first battle as the Mongolians and the RUS go fisticuffs, and it looks like the Mongolian heavy cavalry heavily outnumbered by the RUS heavy knights. And now the Mongolians are going to be forced into a defensive posture. Now, this is not what the Mongols like. Typically, they're a map control faction. Their harass keeps your opponents pinned into the base until they can reach a critical mass. But when your opponent starts putting the pedal to the metal on your forces, things can get quite scary for sure. And the RUS have really, really taken some pretty big map control. Ahead on gold, ahead on food, ahead on wood, and ahead on stone as well. Obviously, the Mongols can't produce too much. So, yeah, pretty scary across the board. And now we're getting archery ranges. Looks like he's going to keep going just into mass horse archers, which is certainly a very viable tactic. We see the Yam network here. Oh, okay, here's the 3rd landmark. So when a Khan is nearby, the Kurultai heals all nearby damage units and provides a 25% damage bonus for 30 seconds. It's pretty cool. So you can come here to heal with your Khan and also get a little bit of a buff before a major battle. Now, some more skirmishing going on. Some of the light cavalry for the Rus are being dragged down, but for the most part, the horse archers are able to follow up and do some great work, and the Rus heavy cavalry, just thick, is pushing in there and really dragging through these units. And now you can see the fallback from the Mongols. They're going to have to change it up because the Mangudai horse archers do not do any damage against the knights. It's very low. They're going to have to start getting their own lancers and try and go from there. Now, are we seeing a landmark for the Rus as they advance into the next age? We do see a light farm economy being established here, just to make sure there's some consistency, a little berry expansion here with the hunting bushes. And for the most part, pretty darn secure. The monastery has been built right next to the relic, so obviously we will be seeing the unique Rus warrior monk, who's one of my favorite characters, or I guess units in this game, I should say, because they basically can grab relics at a very fast pace. They ride a horse, whereas other religious characters have to walk on foot. So you can ride across the map and jack relics from your opponents if you get ahead of them. And also they have an ability called the Saint's Blessing, where when the Rus warrior monks attack a nearby unit, it buffs the other Rus units that are fighting nearby with armor and damage. So like having the the religious character amongst the troops fighting is pretty darn cool. And the other cool thing about the Rus warrior monk is that essentially, if you grab a relic, you can ride into your enemy's army much faster than an enemy or a basic priest could and try and get a big conversion off. So they have a lot of utility. But it looks like the Rus are in a pretty dominant position right now as they continue to just push in. But the Mongols, I mean, aren't that far behind, and they actually take the lead here on the food economy, a little bit behind on gold. So they're going to be struggling to produce. And the problem with getting spearmen against this army is that the Rus horse archers are just absolutely going to be annihilating the basic spearmen, right? And the Mongols are really just struggling. I mean, the Rus have just such a superior, I think, eco, or at least they did. I think the Mongols finally were able to catch up in terms of eco, but at this point, yeah, the Khan has fallen, and you can see the Mongol army is now being taken apart. The horse archers basically have free range to just run just ranks through all these units and just tear apart the villagers. And it's going to be very tough for our Mongol player to come back here. And it looks like that's going to be GG, well played. So there you get to see a very masterfully executed Rus triple expand, just impeccable defenses. I mean, myself, if I had that early horse, I played against Kazva a couple times against his Mongols, and like almost every time I played him, he's been able to just punish me really badly with his early harass and the horse archers. But the Mista just like calm, collected, great usage of the wooden fortresses to secure ground, and then from there just like went to his tech, got his units, got the upgrades for his knights, and just was able to just out macro and out push through his opponent. It was just a great game, and I certainly learned a lot. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that one, the dreaded Rus triple expand. We didn't get to see Streltsy, but nonetheless the horse archers were quite effective. Here we can look at the statistics. It was actually a tech advantage for the Mongols, it would appear. So that means they've researched more stuff, like probably economic upgrades. And really not that far behind in terms of economy. Kazva did a great job keeping up, and despite the eco disadvantage he had, and the military, man, was nasty for the Rus as the late game did progress. So that is it for now. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. We'll be back with more AoE 4 content soon, and that is it. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time.